My name is Marcus Chen, and the day I came home from college for Thanksgiving break, I found all my belongings in garbage bags on the front lawn. Not because I did anything wrong. Not because I failed out or got in trouble. But because my younger sister Emma needed a craft room for her new jewelry business, and apparently, my childhood bedroom was the perfect space for that. My mother stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, looking at me like I was the one being unreasonable. "You're 22 years old, Marcus. It's time you got your own place anyway. Emma's trying to build something real here." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. That was 15 years ago. What they didn't know then, what they couldn't have possibly imagined, was that one day I'd be the one deciding where they'd spend their golden years. And trust me, the irony wasn't lost on me when I signed those papers. The November air bit at my face as I stood there staring at those black trash bags lined up like body bags on the yellowing grass. My PlayStation was visible through the stretched plastic of one bag. In another, I could see the corner of my high school yearbook, the one where I'd been voted most likely to succeed. The third bag had split open slightly, and I recognized my telescope, the one I'd saved up for 3 summers to buy when I was 16. I'd spent countless nights on the roof with that thing, mapping constellations, dreaming about things bigger than the small Indiana town I grew up in. I heard a window open on the second floor. Emma leaned out, her blonde hair catching the afternoon light. She gave me this little wave, half apologetic, half dismissive. "Sorry, Marc. Mom said you'd understand. I really need the natural lighting in your room for my photography setup." She didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. Just ducked back inside and pulled the curtain shut. My curtains. The ones I'd picked out when I was 14 because they had the solar system printed on them. My father's truck pulled into the driveway behind my beat-up Honda Civic. He climbed out slowly, his work boots crunching on the gravel. Dad had worked at the same factory for 30 years, third shift, assembling engine parts for agricultural equipment. His hands were permanently stained with grease, his back bent from decades of repetitive motion. He looked at the bags, then at me, then back at the bags. "Your mother's decision," he said finally. That was it. 4 words. No explanation, no apology, no acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, this was completely insane. He walked past me into the house, and I heard him ask what was for dinner like this was just another Thursday afternoon. I loaded those bags into my car. It took 4 trips. My entire childhood, my entire adolescence, everything I'd accumulated in 22 years of living in that house, fit into the trunk and back seat of a 12-year-old sedan. The neighbor across the street, Mrs. Patterson, watched from her garden. She didn't wave. Just shook her head and went back to trimming her roses. I drove to my friend Tyler's apartment in downtown Hammond. He was my roommate from freshman year, the one person from high school who'd actually left town and made something of himself. Tyler worked as a paramedic, pulling night shifts at the county hospital. His place was small, a 1-bedroom above a Vietnamese restaurant, but he'd already cleared space in his living room before I even called. "Stay as long as you need," he said, helping me carry bags up the narrow staircase. The smell of pho and lemongrass filled the hallway. "Your family's insane, man. You know that, right?" I did know that. But knowing something and accepting it are 2 very different things. That night, I lay on Tyler's couch, staring at the water-stained ceiling, listening to the sounds of the city outside. Cars honking, people shouting in Vietnamese from the restaurant below, the distant wail of sirens. I thought about Emma in my room. I wondered if she'd taken down my posters, the periodic table one I'd gotten at a science fair, the vintage Star Wars prints I'd collected. I wondered if she'd thrown away the model rockets I'd built with my grandfather before he died. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Don't be dramatic about this. You're an adult now. Act like it." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and started looking at apartments I couldn't afford. I was in my senior year at Purdue, studying mechanical engineering. My scholarships covered tuition and books, but not much else. I worked weekends at a hardware store, barely making enough for gas and groceries. The cheapest studio apartment in West Lafayette was $800 a month. I had $300 in my checking account. But I'd figure it out. I always did. That's what being the responsible child means. You figure it out because nobody else is going to do it for you. The next morning, Tyler left for his shift at 6. I made coffee in his tiny kitchen and sat at the wobbly card table he used for dining. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Marcus Chen? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. Speaking. This is Patricia Morrison from Morrison & Associates. I'm the executor of your grandfather's estate. I've been trying to reach you at your parents' address, but the calls keep going unanswered. My grandfather. Dad's father. He'd passed away the previous January, quietly, in his sleep, at the assisted living facility where he'd spent his final 3 years. The funeral had been small. I remembered my father crying, the only time I'd ever seen him show that kind of emotion. I remembered my mother complaining about the cost of the service. I'm sorry, I said. I'm not living there anymore. I see. Well, I have some documents that require your signature. Your grandfather left specific instructions in his will regarding you. Would you be able to come to my office this week? I had classes, I had work, I had approximately 17 things I couldn't afford to skip. But when a lawyer calls about your dead grandfather's will, you make time. I can be there tomorrow afternoon, I said. She gave me an address in Fort Wayne, about an hour north. I wrote it down on the back of a Chinese takeout menu. The next day, I cut my thermodynamics lecture and drove to Fort Wayne. Patricia Morrison's office was in a converted Victorian house near the downtown courthouse. Inside, everything was dark wood and leather, the kind of place that smelled like old books and furniture polish. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with steel gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. Mr. Chen, she said, shaking my hand with a grip that could crack walnuts. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. She opened a folder on her desk. Inside were documents, official-looking papers with seals and signatures. Your grandfather was very specific about his wishes. He established a trust approximately 5 years ago, shortly after your grandmother passed. The bulk of his estate was divided between your father and your uncle. However, there was one asset he wanted to ensure went directly to you. She slid a document across the desk. I picked it up, squinting at the legal language. Phrases jumped out at me. Sole beneficiary. Transfer of deed. Property located at 447, Maple Street. I don't understand, I said. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Your grandfather owned a small rental property in South Bend. A duplex. He purchased it in 1987 and rented out both units for supplemental income during his retirement. The property is now yours, free and clear. No mortgage, no liens. The current tenants are on month-to-month leases. You can choose to continue renting it out or sell it. That's entirely up to you. I stared at the paper. My hands were shaking. Why didn't anyone tell me about this? Your grandfather instructed me not to inform anyone, including your parents, until after the estate was fully settled and you turned 21. He was very clear that this was to be kept confidential. She paused, studying my face. He also left you a letter. Would you like to read it now, or take it with you? Now, I said. My voice sounded strange, distant. She handed me an envelope. My name was written on the front in my grandfather's shaky handwriting. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I opened it carefully, my fingers clumsy. Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're old enough to handle what I'm about to tell you. I've watched your father and mother treat you like a workhorse your entire life. I've seen them praise Emma for breathing while you worked yourself half to death just to get a nod of approval. It made me sick, but it wasn't my place to interfere. This is my way of making sure you have something that's truly yours, something they can't take, can't borrow, can't guilt you into sharing. The duplex on Maple Street is yours. Do with it what you will. But remember this, you don't owe them anything. Not your success, not your money, and certainly not your forgiveness. Build your life on your own terms. Make me proud. Love, Grandpa Joe. I read it 3 times. Patricia sat quietly, giving me space. When I finally looked up, my eyes were wet. The property generates about $1,800 a month in rental income, she said gently. The previous property manager has agreed to stay on if you'd like, or you can manage it yourself. All the paperwork is here. You just need to sign. I signed. My signature looked nothing like my normal writing. My hand was shaking too much. I drove back to Hammond in a daze. A duplex. Rental income. $1,800 a month. That was more than I made at the hardware store. That was enough to cover rent, groceries, everything. I pulled over at a rest stop and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Mom wants to know if you're coming for Thanksgiving. She's making your favorite stuffing. I looked at that message for a long time. Then I deleted it. When I got back to Tyler's apartment, he was making eggs in the kitchen. I told him everything. He listened, spatula in hand, eggs slowly burning in the pan. So what are you going to do? He asked. I'm going to finish school, I said. And I'm going to never ask them for anything ever again. Tyler nodded. Good. Also, these eggs are ruined. The next few months were strange. I moved into a small efficiency apartment near campus, paid for with the rental income from the duplex. I didn't tell my parents about the inheritance. As far as they knew, I was scraping by on student loans and my hardware store job. They never asked. Not once. Emma called occasionally, usually when she needed something. Could I help her move some furniture? Did I know anything about fixing computers? Her car was making a weird noise. Could I take a look? I said no to all of it. She seemed genuinely confused by this. You're being really weird lately, she said during one call. Mom says you're going through a phase. Maybe I am, I said, and hung up. I graduated in May with honors. My parents didn't come to the ceremony. They said it was too far to drive, and Emma had a craft fair that weekend that she needed help with. Tyler came instead, and so did a few of my professors. We took photos in front of the engineering building. In every picture, I was smiling, really smiling, maybe for the first time in years. I got a job at an aerospace company in Chicago. The salary was more money than I'd ever imagined making. $75,000 a year, plus benefits, plus a signing bonus. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park, nothing fancy, but it was mine. I bought furniture that wasn't from Goodwill. I bought groceries without checking my bank account first. I bought a new telescope, a really good one, and spent weekends at a local astronomy club. The duplex in South Bend kept generating income. I put it in a savings account and didn't touch it. Watching that number grow felt better than anything I could have spent it on. My parents called once every few months, usually around holidays. The conversations were always the same. How was work? Was I seeing anyone? Emma was doing great, by the way. Her jewelry business was really taking off. She'd just gotten a booth at this amazing artisan market. Wasn't that wonderful? I made appropriate noises. Yes, wonderful. That's great. Good for her. I was 27 when my mother called with actual news instead of the usual performance. Your father and I are thinking about retirement, she said. Her voice had this careful quality, like she was reading from a script. We've been looking at properties in Arizona. The winters here are just getting too harsh. That's nice, I said. I was at my desk at work, reviewing stress calculations for a wing component. I had the phone on speaker, only half paying attention. The thing is, we'll need to sell the house. And we were hoping, well, your father and I were discussing, perhaps you might want to help with the down payment? Just a loan, of course. We'd pay you back once we sell. I stopped typing. How much are we talking about? 50,000. Maybe 60. The places we're looking at are very reasonable, but we're just a bit short after helping Emma with her business expansion. Of course they were helping Emma. Emma, who was now 32 and still treating her jewelry hobby like it was a Fortune 500 company. I'll think about it, I said. Well, don't think too long. We're hoping to make an offer next month. She hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, watching shadows move across the ceiling, thinking about that garbage bag on the lawn. Thinking about my mother's face when she told me to grow up and get my own place. Thinking about my father's 4 words. Your mother's decision. I picked up my phone and called Patricia Morrison. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding wide awake despite it being nearly midnight. Mr. Chen. It's been a while. I need your advice on something, I said. I told her about the call. About the retirement home in Arizona. About the request for money. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, how much do you have saved? About 200,000, between the duplex income and my salary. And what do you want to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? I wanted them to acknowledge what they'd done. I wanted an apology. I wanted them to see me as something other than a backup plan, a safety net, a convenient source of funds. But wanting those things from people who were never going to give them was just another way of staying stuck. I want to be free of them, I said finally. Then here's what you do, Patricia said. You tell them no. And you prepare yourself for the fallout. Because people who've used you your entire life don't take kindly to losing access. I told them no. My mother called back 3 days later. Her voice was different this time, sharp, angry. Emma told me you just bought a brand new car. I had. A sensible Honda Accord, but still. So you have money for yourself, but not for your family? That's correct, I said. The silence on the other end was deafening. After everything we've done for you, she said finally. After we raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head. Until you literally put my roof on the lawn, I said. I haven't forgotten that, Mom. I've never forgotten that. You're still holding on to that? Marcus, that was years ago. Emma needed that space. And I needed my family to have my back. I guess we don't always get what we need. She hung up. My father called an hour later. Your mother's very upset, he said. I imagine she is. This isn't like you, son. You've always been the reasonable one. Maybe I'm tired of being reasonable. He sighed, long and heavy. We really need this money, Marcus. The house needs a new roof, new furnace. We can't afford to fix it and buy a place in Arizona. We were counting on you. You were counting on me, I repeated. Did you ask Emma? Emma's business is struggling. She can't help right now. Her business has been struggling for 10 years, Dad. At some point, that's just called failure. Another long silence. Then, I don't know what's gotten into you, but I hope you come to your senses soon. Before you do something you'll regret. He hung up too. I sat there, phone in my hand, waiting to feel guilty. Waiting for that familiar squeeze in my chest that always came when I disappointed them. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt light. Untethered. Free. The calls stopped after that. No more holiday check-ins. No more updates about Emma's latest venture. Radio silence. I told myself I didn't care. Mostly, I believed it. 3 years passed. I got promoted twice. I was making six figures now, managing a team of engineers, working on projects that actually mattered. I bought a condo overlooking Lake Michigan. I dated, nothing serious, but I was learning how to let people in. Tyler visited from Indiana occasionally. We'd get deep dish pizza and talk about the old days, back when we were broke and sleeping on each other's couches. "You ever think about them?" he asked once, wiping grease from his chin. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But less and less." My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Maybe muscle memory. Maybe curiosity. "Is this Marcus Chen?" A man's voice, unfamiliar. "Yes. This is Robert Holloway. I'm a real estate agent in Fort Wayne. I'm calling because I have a property I think you might be interested in. It's a unique situation." I frowned. "I'm not really in the market right now." "It's your parents' house," he said. "On Sycamore Street in Hammond. They're selling. Foreclosure situation, actually. The bank's taking offers. I thought, given your connection to the property, you might want first right of refusal before it goes to public auction." My heart stopped. Foreclosure? The mortgage payments haven't been made in 8 months. They're $300,000 in debt between the house and some other loans. The bank's seizing assets. The house appraises at about $250 in current condition. Needs significant work. But the bones are good. I sat down slowly. "When's the auction?" 2 weeks. "But like I said, I can arrange a private sale if you're interested. Save everyone the embarrassment of a public bidding war." I thanked him and hung up. Then I called Patricia Morrison for the second time in 3 years. "They're losing the house," I told her. "I know," she said. "I still have contacts in Hammond. I was wondering when you'd hear about it." "What happened?" "From what I understand, they took out a second mortgage to buy that property in Arizona. Then your father had a health scare, massive medical bills. Insurance didn't cover everything. They borrowed against the Arizona property to pay the medical debt, then couldn't keep up with both mortgages. The Arizona place sold at a loss 6 months ago. Now the Hammond house is all that's left." "Where are they living?" "With Emma. She's renting a house on the east side. 2 bedrooms. From what I hear, it's not going well." I imagine my parents crammed into Emma's spare room, surrounded by boxes of unsold jewelry and craft supplies. I imagine the arguments, the blame, the slow realization that this is what happens when you build your life on someone else's back and that someone finally walks away. "The real estate agent said I could buy it before auction," I said. "You could. The question is, should you?" I thought about that garbage bag on the lawn. I thought about my telescope in shredded plastic. I thought about my father's 4 words and my mother's text telling me to act like an adult. "I think I should," I said. "I bought the house for $220,000 cash. Below market value, but enough to clear their debt and save their credit from complete destruction. The bank was happy to avoid the auction. Robert was happy to get his commission. And I was happy to own the house I grew up in. I didn't tell my parents I was the buyer. Robert handled everything through an LLC I'd set up with Patricia's help. As far as they knew, some investment company had purchased the property. They had 30 days to vacate. Emma called me for the first time in 3 years. "Marcus, it's Emma. Please don't hang up." I didn't hang up. I just waited. "I don't know if you heard, but Mom and Dad lost the house. They're living with me now and it's really cramped. I was wondering if you might be able to help them find a place. Maybe co-sign a lease or something? I know you're doing well, and I just thought." "No," I said. "Marcus, please. They're our parents. They're getting old. Dad's health isn't good. They need family right now. They had family. Then they decided I was more useful as an ATM than a son. I'm not interested in auditioning for that role again. That's not fair. They made mistakes, but they're still our parents. Emma, Do you remember when I came home from college and all my stuff was on the lawn? Do you remember moving into my bedroom like I never existed? Silence. Do you remember calling me even once to ask if I was okay? If I had a place to stay? If I needed anything? More silence. I didn't think so. You want me to help them? Help them yourself. You're the golden child. I'm sure you'll figure something out. I hung up. The 30 days came and went. Robert called to confirm the property was vacant. I drove down to Hammond on a Saturday morning. The house looked smaller than I remembered, sadder. The lawn was overgrown. Someone had spray-painted something on the garage door, barely visible now under layers of grime and weather. The maple tree in the front yard, the one my grandfather planted when I was born, was dying. I unlocked the front door with the new keys Robert had given me. Inside, the house was empty except for trash and a few broken pieces of furniture. The carpet was stained. The walls needed paint. The kitchen cabinets hung open like mouths. I climbed the stairs slowly. My old room was at the end of the hall. The door was open. I stepped inside. The solar system curtains were gone. The walls were painted beige now, boring and neutral. There were holes where Emma had hung shelves for her jewelry displays. The closet door was missing entirely. But the window was the same. I walked over and looked out at the view I'd had for 18 years. Mrs. Patterson's house across the street. The bus stop where I'd waited every morning for school. The crack in the sidewalk where I'd wiped out on my bike when I was 9. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. How does it feel? I typed back slowly. Like closing a door I should have closed a long time ago. I walked back downstairs and locked the house behind me. In 2 weeks, a contractor crew would arrive to start renovations. In 3 months, the house would be beautiful again. And in 4 months, it would go on the rental market, generating income just like the duplex in South Bend. My parents would never live here again. They'd never sit in that living room or cook in that kitchen or sleep in that master bedroom. And I'd never have to wonder if they saw me as a son or a safety net. I drove back to Chicago as the sun set over the Indiana flatlands, the sky turning orange and purple, the fields stretching out endlessly on both sides of the highway. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt like I was driving towards something instead of away from it. The renovation on the Hammond house took longer than expected. What I thought would be a 3-month project stretched into 6. The foundation had cracks I didn't know about. The electrical wiring was so old it violated current building codes. The plumbing had to be completely redone after we discovered corroded pipes that were probably installed when Nixon was president. Every wall we opened revealed another problem, another expense, another delay. But I didn't mind. Something about watching that house transform felt therapeutic. I drove down from Chicago every other weekend to check on the progress, and each time I walked through those rooms, they felt less like the place where I'd been discarded and more like just another investment property. The contractor I'd hired, a guy named Ramon who'd been renovating houses in Northwest Indiana for 20 years, did excellent work. He didn't ask questions about why I was dumping so much money into a modest 3-bedroom house in a working-class neighborhood. He just nodded, showed me samples, and made it happen. By month 4, the place was unrecognizable. New hardwood floors throughout, granite countertops in the kitchen, updated bathrooms with subway tile and brushed nickel fixtures. We knocked out a wall between the kitchen and dining room, opening up the space, letting light flood in. The dying maple tree in the front yard had to come down, which hurt more than I expected, but we planted 2 new saplings in its place. Japanese maples, the kind that turn brilliant red in autumn. I was standing in what used to be my bedroom, now painted a soft gray with new baseboards and crown molding, when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but it had a Hammond area code. Hello? Marcus, it's Dad. I hadn't heard his voice in over 3 years. It sounded older, raspier, like he'd aged a decade in that time. How did you get this number? I asked. Emma still had it from a few years back. Listen, I know we haven't talked in a while, and I know things got complicated between us, but I was hoping we could meet up. Just you and me. Get coffee or something." I looked around the empty room. Through the window, I could see Ramon's truck in the driveway, could hear the sound of a saw cutting through wood somewhere downstairs. "Why now?" I asked. He was quiet for a moment. "Because I'm 68 years old and my son won't talk to me. Because your mother cries about it sometimes, even though she won't admit it. Because I'd like to know you before I'm too old to remember the conversation." There was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Not manipulation, not anger, just exhaustion. The weariness of someone who'd finally run out of road. "There's a diner on Ridge Road," I said. "Maxine's. Tomorrow at 10. "I'll be there," he said, and hung up before I could change my mind. I told Ramon I'd be back in a few hours and drove to the diner early. Maxine's had been there since the 70s, one of those places with cracked vinyl booths and laminated menus and coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since dawn. I ordered a cup and sat in a corner booth, watching the door. My father arrived exactly at 10. He looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner. His hair had gone completely white, and he moved carefully, like his joints hurt. He spotted me and made his way over, sliding into the booth across from me with a soft grunt. "Thanks for meeting me," he said. A waitress appeared, filled his coffee cup without asking, and disappeared. We sat in silence for a minute, both of us adding cream and sugar, stirring, buying time. "Your mother doesn't know I'm here," he said finally. "She thinks I'm at physical therapy." "Physical therapy for what?" "Had a minor stroke last year. Left side's weaker than it used to be. Nothing dramatic, but the doctor says I need to take it easy." He sipped his coffee. "Getting old isn't for cowards." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. "I heard you bought a house in Hammond," he continued. "Investment property," Ramon mentioned it to someone at the hardware store. "Small town, word gets around." "It's just business," I said. He nodded slowly. "That's good. That's smart. You always were the smart one." He paused. "I also heard it was our old place. The one we lost." I met his eyes. "Does it matter?" "I suppose it doesn't. It's not ours anymore. Hasn't been for a while." He wrapped both hands around his coffee mug like he was trying to warm them. "I wanted to apologize. For everything. For that Thanksgiving when we kicked you out. For always expecting you to carry everyone else's weight. For not seeing you as anything other than the reliable one who'd always be there." I'd imagined this conversation 1,000 times over the years. In my head, I always had the perfect response, something cutting and profound that would make him understand exactly how much damage he'd done. But sitting there across from him, watching his hands shake slightly as he lifted his coffee cup, all those rehearsed speeches disappeared. "Why did you do it?" I asked instead. Why was it always so easy to choose her over me? He looked down at his coffee. "Emma was sick when she was little." "Did you know that?" "I didn't." "She was 3. Leukemia. We spent 8 months in and out of hospitals, watching her go through chemo, watching her lose her hair, wondering if we were going to lose her entirely. And then she went into remission. The doctors said it was a miracle. Your mother never got over it. Never stopped seeing Emma as fragile, as something we needed to protect and shelter." He looked up at me. "You came along 2 years later, healthy and strong and easy. You didn't need us the same way. So we didn't give you the same attention. And by the time Emma was grown and didn't need protecting anymore, the pattern was set. We'd made you the strong one and her the delicate one, and we didn't know how to change it." "That's not an excuse," I said. "No," he agreed. "It's not. It's an explanation. A bad one, but it's what I've got." The waitress came back, asked if we wanted food. My father ordered eggs and toast. I ordered the same, not because I was hungry, but because I didn't know what else to do. "Emma's jewelry business failed," he said after the waitress left. "Completely. She's working at a department store now, selling makeup. Hates it. Your mother and I are living in a one-bedroom apartment on the east side. I take the bus to my doctor's appointments because we can't afford a second car. We're on food stamps. It's not the retirement we planned. I'm sorry, I said, and I was surprised to find I meant it. Don't be. We made our choices. We helped Emma when we should have made her stand on her own feet. We leaned on you when we should have just asked if you were okay. We sold our house to chase some fantasy retirement and didn't plan for emergencies. That's on us. Our food arrived. We ate in silence for a while. The eggs were overcooked, the toast was cold, but neither of us complained. I don't expect you to forgive us, my father said eventually. I don't expect you to help us out or have us over for holidays or any of that. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What we did. And I'm sorry. That's all. He stood up slowly, left a $10 bill on the table for his half of the breakfast, and walked out. I watched him through the window, climbing into an old Buick that had seen better days, pulling out of the parking lot carefully, signaling even though there was no one else around. I sat there for another hour, drinking bad coffee, thinking about sick little girls and patterns that calcify over decades and apologies that come too late to change anything but might mean something anyway. When I finally left, I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt tired. The house was finished by late August. Ramon did a final walkthrough with me, pointing out every detail, every upgrade, every little touch that made the place special. We'd installed energy-efficient windows, new insulation, a high-efficiency furnace. The kitchen had soft-close cabinets and a farmhouse sink. The bathrooms had heated floors. It was a beautiful house now, the kind of place someone would be lucky to call home. You going to rent it or sell it? Ramon asked as we stood on the front porch. Rent, I said. Long-term investment. He nodded. Good bones. Should hold value well. You want me to recommend a property manager? I've got one already, I said. But thanks. That night, back in Chicago, I sat at my dining room table with a glass of whiskey and my laptop. I pulled up the listing I drafted for the rental property. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, completely renovated, quiet neighborhood, close to schools and shopping. Available September 1st. Rent, $2,000 per month. I stared at that number for a long time. Market rate for a house like that in Hammond was maybe $1,400, $1,500 tops. I was pricing it above market deliberately, pricing it for someone who could afford it but would appreciate the quality, someone who'd take care of it. Or I could do something else entirely. I deleted the listing and opened my email instead. I had my father's email address from years ago, back when he used to forward me chain emails about inspirational quotes and bad jokes. I'd never deleted it from my contacts. I started typing. Dad, I've been thinking about our conversation at the diner. I'm not ready to pretend everything is fine between us. I'm not ready for family dinners or holidays or any kind of regular relationship. But I am willing to do this. The house on Sycamore Street is renovated and ready to rent. The market rate would be about $1,500 a month, but I'm willing to rent it to you and Mom for $800. That's what I need to cover the property taxes and insurance. You'd be responsible for utilities. The lease would be month to month, and if you're ever late on rent or damage the property, the arrangement ends immediately. This isn't charity. It's business. But it's the business I'm willing to do. Let me know by the end of the week. Marcus. I read it over 3 times before sending it. Then I closed my laptop, finished my whiskey, and went to bed. 2 days later, I got a response. Marcus, your mother and I talked about your offer. We talked about it for hours, actually. We appreciate it more than you know. But we can't accept. Not because of pride, though that's part of it. But because if we took that house, we'd never be able to separate the gift from the guilt. We'd spend every day remembering what we lost and how we lost it. That's no way to live. What we'd like instead, if you're willing, is to rent the place at market rate. $1,500 a month. We'll make it work. I'll pick up some part-time work. Your mother's talking about going back to her old job at the library. We'll manage. But we'd like to pay our own way. If that's acceptable to you. Dad. I stared at that email for a long time. Then I called Patricia Morrison. They want to pay market rate, I told her. Good, she said. Let them. It feels wrong somehow. Like I'm profiting off their situation. Marcus, you're offering them a home. A beautiful, renovated home that you put your own money and effort into. They're choosing to rent it at a fair price. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's probably the healthiest thing that's happened between you all in years. She was right. I knew she was right. Draw up a standard lease agreement, I told her. Month to month, $1,500 rent, first and last month plus security deposit. Everything official. Consider it done. My parents moved into the house in early September. I wasn't there for it. I had Ramon meet them with the keys and do the walkthrough. He texted me later that day. They cried when they walked in. In a good way, I think. Your dad kept touching the walls like he couldn't believe they were real. I didn't respond. I just saved the message and tried not to think about it too much. Weeks passed. The rent payments came through automatically on the first of each month, never late, always exactly $1,500. My father got a job at the same hardware store where I used to work during college, helping customers in the tool department 3 days a week. My mother went back to the library, part-time, shelving books and running the children's story hour. They were managing. I didn't call them. They didn't call me. The relationship existed entirely through a property management app and occasional brief emails about maintenance requests. The dishwasher made a weird noise. Could someone take a look? The gutters needed cleaning before winter. All very professional, very distant, very safe. In November, I got an email from Emma. The subject line was just, "Can we talk?" I almost deleted it. But something made me open it instead. Marcus, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. I know I don't deserve your time or attention. But I've been in therapy for about 6 months now, and my therapist suggested I reach out to you. Not to ask for anything, not to make excuses, but just to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry for taking your room like it was nothing. I'm sorry for never once asking if you were okay after Mom and Dad kicked you out. I'm sorry for watching them treat you like an ATM and never saying anything. I'm sorry for being so wrapped up in my own failures that I couldn't see how much I was contributing to yours. You didn't fail, obviously. You succeeded in spite of all of us. But I failed you as a sister, and I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me or want a relationship with me. I just needed you to know that I see it now. What I did, what I didn't do. And I'm sorry. Emma. I read that email 5 times. Then I saved it in a folder and didn't respond. 3 weeks later, right before Thanksgiving, I got another email from her. I'm not going to keep bothering you. This is the last email, I promise. But I wanted you to know that I told Mom and Dad everything I should have said years ago. I told them they were wrong to kick you out. I told them they were wrong to always expect you to bail everyone out. I told them I was wrong to let it happen. They didn't take it well. We had a huge fight. But it needed to be said. You deserve to have someone in your corner, even if it's 15 years too late. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving. Emma. I sat with that email for a long time. Then I typed a response. Emma, thank you for the apology. I appreciate it, and I believe you mean it. I'm not ready for a relationship yet. Maybe not ever. But I don't hate you. I just need distance. I hope you understand. Marcus. I sent it before I could overthink it. She responded within an hour. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here if you ever change your mind. Thanksgiving came and went. I spent it with Tyler and some friends from work, eating too much and watching football and pretending I wasn't thinking about my parents in the house on Sycamore Street, wondering if they were eating alone or if Emma had come over, wondering if they were thinking about me. December brought snow, heavy and early, blanketing Chicago in white. I was at the office late one evening, the week before Christmas, when my phone rang. Unknown number, Hammond area code. Hello? Mr. Chen, this is Linda Kowalski. I'm your father's neighbor on Sycamore Street. My stomach dropped. Is he okay? He's fine, she said quickly. But there's a situation. Your parents' furnace went out this afternoon. It's supposed to drop below zero tonight. I've got them over at my place right now drinking coffee, but I thought you should know. They tried calling the emergency maintenance number but got a voicemail. I'll handle it, I said. Thank you for taking care of them. I called the HVAC company I'd used during the renovation. They were closed, but the after-hours service picked up. I explained the situation, authorized emergency rates, and had a technician dispatched within the hour. Then I called my father. Marcus? He sounded surprised. Linda called me. The furnace is being fixed tonight. Stay at her place until the tech gives you the all-clear. You didn't have to do that. We could have gotten a hotel or something. It's my property. My responsibility. This is what landlords do. Right. Of course. Well, thank you. You're welcome. Stay warm. I hung up before the conversation could go anywhere else. The technician called me around 10 that night. Got it running again. Pilot light was out and there was a safety sensor issue. All fixed now. House should be warm again in about 20 minutes. Send me the bill, I said. Already processed through your account. Have a good night, Mr. Chen. I sat at my desk for a while after that, looking out at the Chicago skyline, all those lights against the darkness. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. Heat's back on. Thank you. We really appreciate it. I didn't respond. Just set the phone down and went back to work. Christmas approached. I'd planned to spend it in Chicago, maybe catch a movie, order Chinese food, the standard bachelor holiday. But on December 23rd, Emma sent another email. I know you don't want to hear from me, and I'm not asking you to come over or anything like that. But I wanted you to know that I'm hosting Christmas dinner this year. Mom and Dad will be there. Just the three of us. It's going to be small and probably awkward, but it's something. You're welcome to join us if you want. No pressure. No expectations. Just an open invitation. We're eating it too. Emma. I stared at that email for 2 days. Tyler called me Christmas Eve, asking what my plans were. I might go to Hammond, I said. Really? That's big. Maybe. I don't know yet. What's holding you back? Fear that it'll be terrible. Fear that it'll be good. Fear that I'll get sucked back into caring about people who've hurt me. Those are valid fears, Tyler said. But you know what's worse than being hurt again? Never taking the chance to heal. When did you become a therapist? I see a lot of families in crisis at work. You learn things. Look, I'm not saying you have to go. I'm just saying that maybe the fact that you're even considering it means something. Christmas morning, I woke up early. I made coffee. I sat on my couch, looking at the lake, watching the sunrise paint everything gold and pink. Then I got dressed, got in my car, and drove to Hammond. I stopped at a grocery store and bought a pie. Apple, because it was the only thing I knew how to contribute without overthinking it. Then I drove to Emma's house, a small rental on the east side, and sat in the car for 10 minutes, engine running, heat blasting, trying to decide if I was really going to do this. Finally, I turned off the car, grabbed the pie, and walked to the front door. Emma answered on the second knock. She looked different than I remembered. Older, obviously, but also somehow softer. Less polished. She was wearing jeans and a sweater with a reindeer on it, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. You came, she said, and her eyes got shiny. I brought pie, I said, holding it up like a shield. "Come in. Please." Inside, the house was small but cozy. A modest Christmas tree in the corner, white lights, and simple ornaments. The smell of roasting turkey filled the space. My parents were in the living room. My father stood up when he saw me, slowly, using the arm of the couch for support. My mother stayed seated, her hands folded in her lap, her face unreadable. "Marcus," my father said. "I'm glad you're here." "Me too," I said, and I was surprised to find I meant it. Dinner was awkward at first. We made small talk about the weather, about work, about safe topics that didn't require us to acknowledge the years of silence between us. But as the meal went on, something shifted. Emma told a story about a customer at the department store. My father laughed, really laughed, and it sounded rusty, like he hadn't done it in a while. My mother asked about my job, actually listening to the answer instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. After dinner, we sat in the living room. Emma made coffee. My mother brought out old photo albums, the kind with sticky pages and plastic covers. We looked at pictures of us as kids, and for the first time in my life, I could see the whole story. The photos of Emma in the hospital, pale and tiny and bald. The photos of me as a toddler, running wild, healthy, demanding attention. The photos of all of us together, trying to be a normal family, whatever that meant. "I think we did the best we could with what we knew," my mother said quietly, looking at a picture of me at my high school graduation. "But our best wasn't good enough. I see that now." I didn't know what to say to that. So I just nodded. As the sun set and it was time to leave, my father walked me to the door. "Thank you for coming," he said. "It meant a lot." "Thank you for the invitation," I said. He hesitated, then offered his hand. I looked at it for a moment, then shook it. His grip was weaker than I remembered, but steady. I drove back to Chicago with the radio off, just the sound of tires on asphalt, the hum of the engine. I didn't feel fixed. I didn't feel like everything was okay now. But I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like maybe, eventually, with time and distance and a lot of work, we might find a way to be something other than strangers bound by blood. The new year came. January brought bitter cold and endless gray skies. Work was busy, which was good. It kept me from overthinking things. The rent payments from my parents continued to arrive on time. We exchanged occasional emails about the house. The bathroom faucet was dripping. The driveway needed salt. All very normal landlord-tenant stuff. In February, Patricia Morrison called me. "I have news about the South Bend duplex," she said. "One of your tenants is moving out. Relocating for work. Which means you have a vacancy coming up next month." "Okay," I said. "I'll work with the property manager to find a new tenant." "Or," Patricia said slowly, "you could sell it. I've had inquiries. That neighborhood has appreciated significantly in the last few years. You could probably get $300,000 for it, maybe more." I thought about that duplex. My grandfather's gift. The thing that had saved me when I had nothing. The foundation of everything I'd built since. "I'm not ready to sell yet," I said. "Maybe someday. But not yet." "Fair enough. Just wanted you to know the option was there." That night, I pulled out the letter my grandfather had written me. I'd kept it all these years, folded in my wallet, carried it with me everywhere. I read it again, his shaky handwriting, his words about building my life on my own terms. I thought about the house on Sycamore Street. About my parents living there, paying their rent, rebuilding their lives one day at a time. About Emma finding her way after years of being lost. About my father working at the hardware store, my mother reading to children at the library. They'd never be the family I wanted as a kid. They'd never undo the damage they'd done. But maybe, just maybe, they could be something different. Something honest. Something earned rather than expected. I folded the letter and put it back in my wallet. Then I opened my laptop and sent an email to Emma. "I'm planning to visit Hammond next month for a property inspection. If you're free, maybe we could get coffee. Let me know. Marcus. She responded within minutes. I'd like that. Let me know when and where. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was just coffee. But it was a start. March came in cold and wet, the kind of weather that makes you question why anyone chooses to live in the Midwest. I scheduled the property inspection for a Saturday morning, giving myself an excuse to drive down to Hammond without it feeling like I was specifically coming to see anyone. The coffee meeting with Emma was set for noon at a place she suggested, a small cafe near the library where our mother worked. The inspection itself was routine. Ramon had recommended a guy named Steve who'd been doing property inspections for 30 years. He went through the house methodically, checking every system, every corner, taking notes on his tablet. My parents weren't home. I'd specifically scheduled it for a time I knew they'd be out, my father at work, my mother at her volunteer shift at the food bank she'd started helping at. Walking through those rooms felt strange. They'd made the place theirs in small ways. Family photos on the mantle, including one of me from high school that I didn't even know existed. A new area rug in the living room. Curtains I didn't recognize. But they'd kept it immaculate. Everything clean, everything maintained, everything respected. Steve finished his inspection and gave me the rundown. House is in excellent shape. Your tenants are taking good care of it. Only issue I found was a small leak under the kitchen sink, just started based on the water stains. Easy fix. Everything else is perfect. I made a note to have a plumber come out the following week. Then I locked up and drove to the cafe. Emma was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee already ordered. She stood up when she saw me, then seemed uncertain whether to hug me or shake my hand or just sit back down. We settled on an awkward half-wave. I got you a black coffee, she said. I didn't know if you still take it that way. I do. Thanks. We sat down. The cafe was busy with the Saturday lunch crowd, which somehow made it easier. The noise gave us cover, made the silence between us less pointed. You look good, Emma said. Successful. You look different, I said. In a good way. More settled. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Settled is one word for it. Grounded is another. Humbled is probably the most accurate. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. I quit the department store job. I'm going back to school. Community college. Getting my teaching certification. That's great, I said, and I meant it. It's terrifying, actually. I'm 35 years old and sitting in classrooms with kids who were born after I graduated high school. But it feels right. For the first time in my life, I'm doing something because I want to, not because I think it'll make me special or successful or whatever I was chasing all those years. We talked for an hour. Really talked. She told me about her therapy, about unpacking all the ways being sick as a child had shaped her into someone who thought she deserved special treatment just for surviving. About how mom and dad's overprotectiveness had crippled her ability to handle failure. About how she'd spent her entire adult life trying to prove she was worth the miracle of her recovery, but doing it in all the wrong ways. I told her about the duplex, about Grandpa Joe's letter, about the years of watching that savings account grow and feeling like I was finally building something that couldn't be taken away. About the loneliness of cutting off your family even when it's the right thing to do. About how success feels hollow when there's nobody who knew you before it happened to share it with. I don't expect us to be close, Emma said as we were finishing our coffee. I know I don't deserve that. But I'd like to be in your life somehow, even if it's just occasions like this. Coffee twice a year or whatever you're comfortable with. I think I can do that, I said. She smiled, and it was genuine. That's more than I hoped for. Thank you. As I was leaving, she called out, Marcus. I turned back. Mom and Dad brag about you constantly, you know. At the library, at Dad's work. To anyone who'll listen. They tell people their son is an engineer in Chicago, works on airplanes, bought investment properties before he was 30. They're proud of you. They just don't know how to tell you that. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak, and walked out into the gray afternoon. The drive back to Chicago felt longer than usual. I kept thinking about what Emma had said. About pride that couldn't find its voice. About parents who'd failed so completely at showing love that their son had to become a landlord just to have a relationship with them that felt safe. Spring arrived slowly, reluctantly. April brought rain and the first hints of green. Work consumed most of my attention. We were in the final stages of a major project, a new wing design that could save airlines millions in fuel costs. I was leading the testing phase, which meant 16-hour days and weekends at the office. But I made time to drive to Hammond once a month. Not to see my parents, just to check on the property. I'd schedule inspections or maintenance, walk through the house when they weren't home, make sure everything was holding up. I told myself it was just good property management. Maybe it was. Maybe it was something else too. In May, my father had another health scare. Not a stroke this time, but a fall. He'd been climbing a ladder at work to reach something on a high shelf and lost his balance. Broke his wrist, bruised a couple ribs. Could have been much worse. I got a call from Emma. I'm at the hospital with them. He's okay, but he can't work for at least 6 weeks while the wrist heals. I thought you should know. Thanks for telling me, I said. Marcus, I know you don't want to get involved, but they're going to struggle with the rent if Dad can't work. I've been helping where I can, but I'm barely covering my own tuition. I closed my eyes. I'll handle it. You don't have to. I'll handle it, I said again, and hung up. I called Patricia Morrison. I need to adjust the lease terms temporarily. 6 weeks of reduced rent while my father recovers. Half rate. You sure about this? She asked. No. But I'm doing it anyway. She drew up an amendment. I sent it to my parents through the property management app with a brief message, heard about the fall. Hope you're recovering well. Rent is reduced to $750 for the next 6 weeks per the attached amendment. Take care of yourself. My father called me that night. You didn't have to do this. I know, I said. But the property doesn't do me any good if my tenants can't afford to stay in it. It's just business. Right. Business. He paused. Will you tell me something honestly? Maybe. Do you hate us? I thought about that question. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I don't hate you. I don't know what I feel, exactly. But it's not hate. That's something, I guess, he said quietly. That's more than I deserve. We hung up without saying goodbye. June brought summer heat and a promotion at work. Director of Engineering. Corner office, significant raise, actual influence over company decisions. My boss took me out for drinks to celebrate. You've earned this, Marcus, he said, clinking his glass against mine. You're one of the best engineers I've ever worked with. But more than that, you're someone people trust. That matters more than technical skill. I thought about trust. About how hard I'd worked to become trustworthy because I'd spent my whole life around people who weren't. About how being reliable had been both my greatest strength and my deepest wound. Thank you, I said. I appreciate that. The raise meant I was making more money than I knew what to do with. I maxed out my retirement accounts, beefed up my emergency fund, and still had significant income left over. I started looking at more investment properties. Found a small apartment building in Milwaukee that needed work but had good bones. Made an offer. Started the renovation process all over again. Tyler called me one night. You know what your problem is? I'm sure you're going to tell me. You don't know how to just be. You always have to be building something, fixing something, improving something. When's the last time you just existed without a project? I like projects, I said. I know. But at some point, you're going to run out of buildings to renovate, and then what? You going to renovate yourself? I didn't have an answer for that. In July, I got an email from my mother. It was the first time she'd reached out directly in years. "Marcus, I know we don't talk much, and I understand why. But I wanted you to know that I've been seeing a counselor. Your father and I both have, actually. We're trying to understand where we went wrong with you and Emma. The counselor suggested I write you a letter, not to send necessarily, but just to articulate my thoughts. I've decided to send it anyway. You don't have to read it if you don't want to. You don't have to respond. But I needed to write it. Mom." Attached was a document. I almost didn't open it. Spent 2 days looking at it in my inbox, wondering if I was ready for whatever it contained. Finally, on a quiet Sunday morning, I made coffee, sat on my couch overlooking the lake, and opened it. It was 12 pages long. Single-spaced. No formatting, just raw thoughts poured onto a page. She wrote about Emma's cancer. About the terror of watching her child suffer. About the guilt of feeling relieved when I was born healthy, like I was insurance against losing Emma. About how that relief turned into taking me for granted. About the resentment she felt when I succeeded so easily at things Emma struggled with, and how she punished me for that success by withholding approval. About the shame of kicking me out, of watching me load my life into garbage bags, and doing nothing to stop it because her pride wouldn't let her admit she was wrong. She wrote about the years of silence. About wanting to reach out but not knowing how. About the day they lost the house and realizing they'd gambled everything on the wrong child, on the one who needed them more but could give back less. About the guilt of accepting my help now, of living in the house I owned, of knowing that the only reason they had a decent place to live was because their son was better than they deserved. She wrote about watching me succeed from a distance. About Googling my name and finding my LinkedIn profile, articles about projects I'd worked on, seeing the life I'd built without them and feeling simultaneously proud and devastated. About lying awake at night wondering if I was happy, if I'd found someone to love, if I thought about them at all. The last paragraph destroyed me. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to love me. I would understand if you hated me, if you never wanted to see me again, if you decided that the kindest thing I could do for you would be to disappear entirely. But I want you to know that every good thing you've become, you became in spite of me, not because of me. And I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, profoundly sorry. I failed you as a mother. I failed you as a human being. And I will carry that failure for the rest of my life. But you don't have to carry it. You don't have to carry any of us anymore. You're free. I hope you know that. I hope you feel that. Love, Mom." I sat there for a long time after reading it. The coffee went cold. The sun moved across the sky. I read it again. And then again. Finally, I opened my laptop and typed a response. "Mom, I read your letter. All of it. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for not making excuses or asking for anything. I'm not ready to say I forgive you, because I'm not sure I know what forgiveness would even look like. But I can say this, I don't want you to disappear. I don't want to cut you out of my life forever. I just need time. Time to figure out how to have a relationship with you that doesn't hurt. Time to trust that you see me now as something other than the strong one who'll always manage. Time to be your son instead of your safety net. I don't know how long that will take. Maybe months. Maybe years. Maybe forever. But I'm willing to try if you are. Marcus." I sent it before I could second-guess myself. She responded within an hour. Just 2 words, "I'm willing." August brought Emma's 30th birthday. She invited me to dinner, just her and a few friends from her teaching program. I almost said no. But then I thought about what Tyler had said, about learning to just be. About existing without armor. I went. The restaurant was casual, a pizza place with checkered tablecloths and bottles of wine you could bring yourself. Emma's friends were young, enthusiastic, full of idealistic talk about changing the education system and reaching difficult students. They treated her like an equal, not like someone who was behind her starting over. Just like another person trying to do something meaningful. Emma introduced me as her brother, the engineer. One of her friends, a woman named Sarah, immediately started asking me technical questions about airplane design. We ended up talking for an hour about wing aerodynamics and fuel efficiency and the future of electric aircraft. She was smart, funny, engaged. When I mentioned I lived in Chicago, she said she had family there, visited often. At the end of the night, Emma walked me to my car. "Thanks for coming," she said. "It meant a lot." "Your friends are nice," I said. "Sarah couldn't stop talking about you. I think she's interested." I felt my face get warm. "I'm not really dating right now." "Why not?" "Good question. I guess I've been focused on other things." "Maybe it's time to focus on yourself for a change," Emma said. "Not as a project. Just as a person who deserves to be happy." I drove home thinking about that. About happiness. About what it would mean to pursue it instead of just pursuing success or security or revenge or whatever I'd been chasing all these years. The next week, I found Sarah on social media and sent her a message. "This is probably weird, but I enjoyed talking to you at Emma's birthday. If you're ever in Chicago, I'd love to continue the conversation over coffee." She responded the next day. "I'm actually visiting my sister next weekend." "Coffee sounds great." We met at a cafe in Wicker Park. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into walking around the neighborhood. We talked for 6 hours. She was a first-year teacher at a charter school in South Bend, passionate about education reform, grounded in a way that reminded me of Tyler. She didn't care that I was an engineer or made good money or owned properties. She cared that I could talk about more than work, that I asked questions and listened to the answers, that I made her laugh. We started dating. Nothing serious at first, just seeing each other when she visited Chicago or I went to South Bend for property management. But it felt easy in a way nothing had felt easy in years. In October, my father's wrist finally healed enough for him to go back to work. I restored the rent to full price. The payment came through on time, as always. With it came a short email. "Back to work today. Feels good to earn my keep again. The house is treating us well. Thank you for giving us a place to call home. Dad." I didn't respond. Just saved the email in the same folder where I kept my mother's letter and Emma's apologies. November brought Thanksgiving again. Emma invited me to her place, the same as last year. This time, she mentioned that Sarah was welcome too, if I wanted to bring her. I asked Sarah if she wanted to come. "Fair warning," I said. "It's complicated. Years of family dysfunction. We're all trying to figure out how to be normal around each other." "All families are complicated," she said. "Mine included." "I'd love to come." We drove down together the day before Thanksgiving. I booked us a hotel room, giving us an escape route if things got too uncomfortable. But as we walked into Emma's house and I saw my parents standing there, older and smaller and somehow more human than they'd ever seemed before, I felt something shift. My mother hugged me. Really hugged me, not the brief, obligatory embraces from my childhood, but a real hug that lasted several seconds. "I'm so glad you're here," she said quietly. My father shook Sarah's hand, then turned to me. "She seems wonderful, son. Good for you." Dinner was easier than the year before. We talked, really talked, about real things. My job, Sarah's teaching, Emma's classes, my parents' lives in their small apartment. Nobody pretended the past hadn't happened. But nobody dwelled in it either. We existed in the present, imperfect but trying. After dinner, Emma suggested we go see the house on Sycamore Street, show Sarah where we grew up. My parents exchanged a look, then my mother said, "Actually, there's something we want to show you there. If you're willing to come." We drove over, my parents leading in their old Buick, Sarah and I following. The house looked beautiful in the late afternoon light, the Japanese maples I'd planted now established and starting to turn their brilliant autumn red. Inside, my parents had set up something in the living room. A table with a tablecloth, and on it, a photo album I'd never seen before. My mother gestured for me to sit. "We've been working on this for months," she said. "Going through old boxes, organizing photos, writing down memories. It's a record. Of all the times we should have seen you, should have celebrated you, should have told you how proud we were. We can't go back and do those things. But we wanted you to know that we remember them now." I opened the album. Inside were photos I'd forgotten existed. Me at science fairs, debate tournaments, academic award ceremonies. Me graduating high school with honors. Me leaving for college. Each photo had a caption in my mother's handwriting. "Should have told him how brilliant he was. Should have taken him to dinner to celebrate. Should have helped him move instead of letting him do it alone." Page after page of failures acknowledged, moments lost, opportunities for love that had passed by unrecognized. The last page had a recent photo, one I didn't recognize at first. It was me walking into the house on Sycamore Street during one of my inspections, taken from across the street. Below it, in my father's handwriting, our son, who built his life from nothing. Who succeeded not because of us but in spite of us. Who gave us a home when we deserved none. Who is becoming the man we should have taught him to be, but who taught himself instead. We are proud. We are grateful. We are sorry. I couldn't speak. Sarah put her hand on mine. Emma was crying quietly. My parents stood there, waiting, not asking for anything, just offering this acknowledgement of everything they'd done wrong and everything I'd become anyway. Finally, I found my voice. "Thank you," I managed. "This means more than you know." My mother sat down next to me. "You asked me once, after we kicked you out, if we even cared that you were gone. I never answered you. But the answer is yes. I cared. We both did. We just cared more about protecting Emma, about maintaining the pattern we'd established, about not admitting we were wrong. And by the time I realized what we'd lost, you were already gone." "I'm not gone anymore," I said quietly. "I'm right here." She took my hand. Her fingers were thin, fragile, showing her age. "I know. And I'm trying not to waste it this time." We stayed for hours, going through the album, telling stories, filling in Sarah on family history. The good and the bad, the failures and the small victories. It wasn't healing, exactly. The wounds were too deep, too old for that. But it was something. Understanding, maybe. Acceptance. As Sarah and I were leaving, my father walked me to the car. "I never told you this, but your grandfather called me a few weeks before he died. He was angry. Told me I was a fool for not seeing what I had in you. Told me I was going to lose you if I didn't change. I told him he was being dramatic. He said, 'You'll see. And when you do, it'll be too late.'" He paused. He was right. I did lose you. But somehow, impossibly, you came back. Not all the way. Maybe not ever all the way. But enough to give us this. And I want you to know I don't take it for granted." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. On the drive back to Chicago, Sarah asked, "Are you okay?" "I think so," I said. "It's strange. I spent so many years being angry at them, protecting myself from them. And now they're just people. Flawed, broken people who made terrible choices but who are trying to do better. I don't know if that's enough. But it's something." "It's more than something," Sarah said. "It's a beginning." December brought snow and the end of another year. I was sitting in my office on a Friday afternoon, looking out at the city, when Patricia Morrison called. "I have some news," she said. "Your parents contacted me directly. They want to buy the house." I sat up straighter. "What?" "They've been saving. Your father picked up extra hours, your mother got promoted to full-time at the library. They've been putting money away for months. They can't afford market value, but they're offering $200,000. It's low, but with the current market, not insultingly so." "Why do they want to buy it?" I asked. "They didn't say exactly. But my guess? They want to own something again. They want to stop being your tenants and start being your parents. I thought about that for a long time. About what it would mean to sell them the house. About whether I even wanted to. What do you think I should do? I asked. That's not my call, Patricia said. But I'll tell you this, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people stand on their own feet, even if they're shaky. They're not asking you for a handout. They're offering to pay you, at the best price they can manage. That's dignity. Maybe you should let them have it. I called my father that night. Dad, Patricia told me about your offer. Right. Look, I know it's low. I know the house is worth more. But it's what we have. If you say no, I understand. I'll sell it to you for $150,000, I said. Silence. Then, Marcus, we can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. $150. That's my price. Take it or leave it. More silence. Then, quietly, we'll take it. Good. Patricia will handle the paperwork. Why are you doing this? He asked. Because you're right. You need to own something. And I need to not be your landlord anymore. This way we both get what we need. The sale closed in January, right after the new year. I didn't attend the closing. Just signed the papers and had them sent over. My parents called me afterwards. We're homeowners again, my mother said. She was crying. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for giving us this. You're welcome, I said. Take care of it. We will. We promise. I hung up and looked around my condo. At the view of the lake, at the furniture I'd chosen, at the life I'd built entirely on my own terms. I thought about my grandfather's letter, about building my life away from them, about freedom. But I also thought about what Sarah had said. About beginnings. About the possibility that freedom didn't have to mean isolation. That I could be independent and still have family. That success didn't mean punishing the people who'd failed me, but building something better than what they'd shown me how to build. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Mom and Dad just called me crying happy tears. Thank you for doing that. You didn't have to. I typed back, I know. But I wanted to. Another text, this time from Sarah. Dinner tonight? I have something I want to talk to you about. Good something or bad something? I asked. Good. Really good. Pick me up at 7? I smiled. See you then. I put my phone down and walked to the window. Chicago stretched out before me, all steel and glass and possibility. Behind me, in Indiana, was a family slowly learning how to be a family. Ahead of me was dinner with someone who made me laugh, who challenged me, who saw me as more than the sum of my accomplishments. I'd spent so many years building walls, protecting assets, securing my future against the people who'd hurt me. And maybe I'd needed to do that. Maybe that protection had been necessary. But now, looking out at the city I'd made my home, I realized something. The best revenge wasn't buying their house or making them pay rent or even selling it back to them at a discount. The best revenge was building a life so full, so rich, so genuinely happy that their mistakes couldn't touch it. Couldn't define it. Couldn't diminish it. They'd given my room to my sister. They'd kicked me out. They'd failed me in 1,000 small ways and a few catastrophic ones. But in the end, they hadn't broken me. They just forced me to build myself stronger. And now, finally, I could let them back in. Not because I needed them. Not because I'd forgiven everything. But because I was secure enough in what I'd built that they couldn't destroy it. I was free. And freedom meant I could choose them, on my terms, at my pace, without fear. That evening, I picked up Sarah for dinner. She was wearing a blue dress I'd never seen before, her hair down, her smile bright. So what's this good news? I asked as we walked to the restaurant. I got accepted into a graduate program, she said. Northwestern. Educational Policy and Leadership. It's exactly what I've been hoping for. Sarah, that's amazing. Congratulations. There's one small problem though, she said, a smile playing at her lips. The program is in Evanston. Which means I'd need to move to the Chicago area. I stopped walking. Is that really a problem? That depends, she said. On whether a certain engineer I know might be interested in seeing more of me. I pulled her close and kissed her, right there on the sidewalk, not caring who saw. I think that could be arranged. We went to dinner, made plans, talked about the future. For the first time in my life, the future didn't feel like something I had to build alone, brick by brick, protecting every inch of ground I gained. It felt like something I could share. Later that night, back at my condo, I pulled out my grandfather's letter one more time. Read his words about building my life on my own terms, about not owing anyone anything, about being free. He was right. I was free. But freedom, I'd learned, didn't mean being alone. It meant having the strength to choose who you let in. The wisdom to set boundaries. The courage to rebuild relationships on your own terms. My parents would never be perfect. They'd already failed me too many times for that. But they were trying. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. I folded the letter and put it back in my wallet. Then I opened my laptop and sent an email to my mother. Mom, Sarah's moving to Chicago in the fall for grad school. I'd like you and Dad and Emma to come visit sometime, meet her properly, see the city. Let me know what works for your schedule. Marcus. She responded within minutes. We'd love that. So much. We'll make it work. Can't wait. Love, Mom. I closed my laptop and looked around my condo. At the life I'd built. At the future I was creating. They'd given my room to my sister. But in return, I'd built an entire world they could never take away. And now, finally, I was inviting them to see it. Not because I needed their approval. But because I wanted to share it. That was the difference. That was freedom. That was home. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.